The solution never actually occurred to these people. To anybody, really, who tries to lose weight. Everyone depends way too much on their free will to save them. But can you depend on a dog's free will to hold itself back from eating out of the garbage? No, of course not. If the garbage is there and the dog is there, you know what's going to happen. Do human beings really have free will? I don't know about you, but when I hear that question, my first reaction is to say, yeah, of course. I've said many times, many videos, that you get what you deserve in life, whether that's good or bad. But then how can you explain this, quote, obesity epidemic, end quote, that's happening right now around the world? If human beings really have free will, then wouldn't it make sense for us to do what's in our best interest every single time? I would think that would be true, but, who are we to judge what somebody's best interests are? And are we talking long-term, short-term? And best interests according to who? By what standards? What I really want to ask, the heart of the issue here, is how could somebody allow themselves to get so fat? And I'm not talking about 20, 30 extra pounds. I'm not even talking about 70, 80, or even 100 extra pounds, which is grotesque, right? It's a lot. I'm talking about hundreds of extra pounds of biologically useless, ugly, fat stored on their body. There's no evolutionary purpose for having that much fat on your body. Zero. In the video that I made the other day about Amber Lynn Reid, I brought up the topic of how it was possible that somebody could get so fat. In that video, my argument was that she had, unintentionally, of course, structured her life in a way that made it easy to do things that made her gain weight, and harder to do things that would prevent her from gaining weight, not necessarily losing weight. It's a key point, prevent her from gaining more weight. Those things were hard. It sounds simple enough at least, and it wasn't until a day later when I was planning this video that I realized I was actually even more right than I thought. Somehow I started watching a clip of my 600-pound life that I've seen screenshots of before. It's this huge fat guy, completely naked, except for a gaming headset, sitting on his bed, playing video games, 34 years old, lives with his dad, obviously doesn't work. Day by day, just wastes his time playing video games, sitting on his bed, naked, eating whatever food his dad brings him. Then it cuts to an interview of his dad, and he says something like, "Food is a big part of his happiness. I just keep bringing him more and more food because it's the only thing that makes him happy." Then you see a clip of the son, which is interesting, claiming that his dad is some sort of enabler. And he's saying something like, "I'm not the one who buys the groceries. I'm not the one who decides what food to bring in the house." And I'm not sure if he actually says it, but he implies, "So it's not my fault that I look like this." And the guy is huge. Now, at first, I thought this was just another example of somebody who wanted to avoid taking responsibility, which is something we all do in certain areas. Nobody's perfect. And honestly, I could end this video right now and just keep that as the main point, and there's no real counter argument to that. Because if you accept responsibility and you say enough is enough, now is the time that I change, theoretically you can make that decision from moment to moment, and every time some sort of temptation pops up for you to, in this case, eat food you shouldn't eat, you can decide not to. But, if we break it down, if we break the timeline down small enough, we can always make that decision again and again. And this is interesting because the eating disorder, gang on YouTube who loves to dislike my Eugenia Cooney videos and leave comments talking about how I don't understand mental illness, you can't just make decisions on your own, it's not your responsibility. Okay. Well, actually, I think you can, but that's not the point of this video. I don't want to get sidetracked. Because the real issue is, let's talk about the people who have trouble eating too much, because they are far greater in number. That's a much bigger problem in terms of the actual number of people than the ones who resist their biological urge to eat. And after I watched the clip of the fat gamer, for lack of a better descriptor, I realized something. And that is that the dad's motivation for giving his son enough food so that he could get to 600 pounds was completely irrelevant. The dad seemed like a nice guy. You could tell he cared about his son, wanted to make him happy, and he didn't know how to make him happy other than giving him food. What else could you do? Well, he filled the house with food that he knew his son would eat. They didn't show clips of the food, but I can only imagine Twinkies, cookies, pizza, microwave meals. You gotta eat a lot to get to 600 pounds. But what I thought after watching this fat gamer talk about his problem was that if the dad secretly hated his son and wanted to torture him and ruin his life, he could do the exact same thing. His motivation meant absolutely nothing. All he had to do was continue to buy the food and put it in the house, and his son would eat it. If, let's say, his son didn't want to gain weight, if his father actually took the food, he bought all the food, put it in his son's room, locked the door, even if the son had never asked for the food, he would probably still eat it and still get to 600 pounds. Just like a dog is going to eat food that you leave in a room with it. In simpler terms, he didn't need to want the food or go out of his way to procure it. He didn't even have to be hungry. The food just had to be in there in the same room with him, and he would eat it. Now look, I'm by no means the role model that people should look up to in terms of fitness. I'm above average, I would say. But I don't keep junk food in my house. Sure, I could go to the store and I could buy it if I wanted to. But if right this second, as I'm recording this video, if I wanted to eat some, I would not be able to. It is not here. It does not exist in my apartment right now. But if I had a constant supply of fast food, donuts, candy, chocolate, cookies, all kinds of other goodies in my house, you better believe I would eat them, or I would at least eat them more than I eat them now. If I had a parent who brought them to me without me asking for them, even if I didn't want them, I would probably eat a little bit. And in fact, every single time I go to visit my family, I gain weight because that's how my family, at least, and it, nothing against them. Somebody comes to visit, you want to make cookies, and you visit, you're going to eat the cookies. But the point is that without the absence of healthier habits to balance out the unhealthy behaviors, eventually the scales would tip in favor of weight gain, no pun intended. So it got me thinking about the real solution to weight loss, and it has nothing to do with motivation, it has nothing to do with discipline, it has nothing to do with commitment or any of that nonsense. Weight loss is all about your physical proximity to food. What food are you near? And the closer you get to food that is not good, the more likely it is that you'll eat it. You cannot eat McDonald's without going to McDonald's. Just stay away from McDonald's. Literally, the physical proximity is all that matters. If you're near food, you will eat it, even if you're not hungry. Bottom line. Yeah, okay, fine. There's some nuance regarding what foods are, quote, better than others. Sure. But if there are no foods around, guess what? You're not going to eat any of them. Finally, what I realized was that the solution never actually occurred to these people. To anybody, really, who tries to lose weight. Everyone depends way too much on their free will to save them. But can you depend on a dog's free will to hold itself back from eating out of the garbage? No, of course not. If the garbage is there and the dog is there, you know what's going to happen. And I would argue that you need to understand that despite the fact that we have cars and iPhones and grocery stores, we are pretty much just walking, talking dogs with Opposable thumbs.